As seen last week on Monday Night Raw, Shane McMahon is back in WWE, and what better way to commemorate the occasion than to count down my top 5 favorite Shane McMahon matches in WWE history. So the thing about this list is that I was not around for any of these matches. Of course, as you guys know, I started watching in April of 2008. I blanked there for a second. But I have seen all these matches on the WWE Network and, reviewing these pay-per-views for WrestleRant. So I've gotten to know these matches. Some of these I've seen more times than others. But there are 5 great Shane McMahon matches that I would strongly recommend that you watch. And I'm sure you're either aware of all 5 of them or most of them or whatever. But before WrestleMania 32, when he goes one-on-one with The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell, not his first time inside Satan's structure. He's wrestled inside Hell in a Cell before back at Unforgiven 2006 against D-Generation X alongside Vince McMahon and Big Show. But anyway, if he did not get replaced in that matchup and he doesn't get replaced by somebody else, he will be wrestling for the first time in 7 years at WrestleMania 32. So before April 3rd, I will recommend to you these top 5 favorite Shane McMahon matches of mine to watch on the WWE Network. Coming in at number 5 is from SummerSlam 1999, less than a year before Shane McMahon became, it's hard to call him an active member of the roster because he was not, wrestling every single week on Raw, but he started wrestling for WWE in late 1998, and less than a year later, he was at SummerSlam in a marquee match against Test in a love her or leave her matchup. Now, the whole stipulation of this contest, I believe, and my memory may be a little shady when it comes to this contest, but I believe that if Test won, he would get the right to be with Stephanie. Of course, that whole storyline was abandoned shortly thereafterwards when Triple H married her, both in storyline and in reality a couple of years later. But in storyline, they would get married right after this pay-per-view, so on. It kind of went to waste. But still, Test was in love with Stephanie McMahon. In order to be with her, he would have to go through her brother, Shane McMahon, first. But he wasn't alone. This was a love her or leave her matchup, like I said, but this was also a street fight. And in Shane McMahon's corner was none other than the Mean Street Posse, who remained with him for a while to come. These guys were a great faction to be with Shane McMahon throughout his tenure in WWF. They were with him for many other matches, and this was one of his first of many matches that he had in the Mean Street Posse with him early on in his WWF tenure. So a great match, back and forth, very, very competitive, a hardcore street fight, and just going back and forth, Shane McMahon ends up getting the upper hand on Test, picks up the victory. And Shane McMahon, in the end, has to relinquish Stephanie McMahon to Test. And like I said, the relationship didn't last too long, just because I think it might have been either the next night on Raw, or a couple months later on pay-per-view, or whatever it might have been. But it was shortly thereafterwards that the whole relationship between Test and Shane McMahon was abolished, or rather, Test and Stephanie McMahon, was abandoned on WWE TV, but a great match nevertheless. Coming in at number 4 here on the list is from Unforgiven 2003, a last man standing match, and I know RJ's going to love this one, with Kane, and those two had a great matchup. These guys had a great feud in the fall of 2003 that started right after Kane unmasked, right before SummerSlam, beat Rob Van Dam, attacked Shane's mother, Linda, live on Raw, and it was just incredible. Like, these two had a great feud, and I would argue that any feud that Shane McMahon had in WWE, this was easily the best one he ever had. And like I said, RJ's going to love this one. He loved the matches they had in late 2003, one of the many reasons why Shane McMahon is one of his favorites from the Ruthless Aggression era. And Kane was on fucking fire at this point as a heel. Unmasking was debatable for many people, but there is no questioning that he was on absolute fire, both literally and figuratively, at many points throughout the fall of 2003. And Shane McMahon did a great job of putting him over, because Shane McMahon was a guy that, like I said in my previous slide here with Test and Shane at SummerSlam 1999, he was a guy that could do just about anything. He was not a trained wrestler. He could take fucking bumps, though. He could fly all around the ring and still lose and still have the people behind him. And that's what worked for this feud so well. Kane needed that momentum coming out of kind of a stagnant first half of 2003. Unmasking was his opportunity to get back over as a monster heel. And this was his chance to do just that. And one of their first of many matches that they had in the fall of 2003 came Unforgiven, like I said, the last man standing matchup. You could substitute this for the ambulance match that had a Survivor Series. Of the two contests, though, I would prefer this one. This was my personal favorite, just because ambulance matches can be, same thing with last man standing. Both matches can be very dull depending on who's involved. But I would say for these two, Shane and Kane, They just had such great chemistry that they made it work. They went all around the arena just beating the living shit out of each other. Kane jumping off the top of an ambulance. That was at Survivor Series, I'm sorry. But these guys just going back and forth. Just a complete hardcore war before Kane ultimately emerged victorious. Jumping off the top on top of Kane. Kane got up before Shane did, thus earning the victory. But it was technically Shane who won the war because Kane endured the most punishment. Shane was willing to do whatever it took to avenge his mother and pick up the victory. He was unable to do that, but still walking away battered and bruised, but not a defeated man before the feud continued going on a Survivor Series. So again, of the many last man standing matches that have taken place in WWE history, I would say about half of them were kind of boring or just not too good or whatever, what have you. This was easily one of the better ones, and that kicked off the long-running rivalry between Kane and Shane in the latter half of 2003 on a strong note. Coming here at number 3 on my top 5 Shane McMahon matches is from SummerSlam as well. The following year, though, not 1999, but 2000, in a hardcore match for the Hardcore Championship against Steve Blackman. And I know this match is notable for just that one spot, but the whole match is a ton of fucking fun. The whole show is a lot of fun. But SummerSlam itself, SummerSlam 2000, had a lot of, basically, I will say this, 2000 for WWE, that year in WWE, was just a lot of fun from start to finish. WrestleMania 2000, maybe not so much, but the whole year was dominated by The Rock and Triple H, who had a great rivalry over the WWE Championship. Stone Cold Steve Austin returning in late 2000. A lot of great stuff happening that year, the three-way triple threat matches, the triple threat tag team matches, ladder, table chair, whatever, for the tag team titles between Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys. But putting all of that aside, Shane McMahon down in the undercard, having some great fucking matches all the time on various pay-per-views, including this pay-per-view, SummerSlam 2000. Again, a hardcore war is really that I know I've said that before to describe the previous two matches, but there's no other way to describe this bout with Steve Blackman, who is also a master manipulator when it came to extreme wrestling. I'm not talking about ECW, but when it came to hardcore matches, and this was no exception. These two just beating the living crap out of each other with kendo sticks, which was Steve Blackman's specialty, climbing up the, whatever you call the escalator, or whatever the hell it is, the steel structure, I guess I could call it. I don't know the exact word for it. It's slipping from my brain right now. But he's climbing up the steel structure. Both of them do. And Steve Blackman whacks Shane multiple times in the back. 1, 2, Shane McMahon stunned. It takes a third or fourth time to finally, to have him fall off the top of the structure. And he falls backward and he lands on like a fucking mattress or whatever. But still, that's a crazy goddamn bump. And I double dog dare you to take that bump too, because anyone who says wrestling is fake has got to watch this match, specifically that spot. And then jumps off the top of it on top of Shane with a flying elbow. And I believe Big Show got involved too, because he was feuding with Shane at that time. He represented, Shane was represented by Big Show at WrestleMania 2000. They had a feud going into Backlash, and they had a fun little match there. And then Shane went on to feud with Steve Blackman at SummerSlam. So really hardcore war, like I said, in that one spot is just amazing and a really, really fun matchup. And traditionally, the thing is that I'm not really a fan of hardcore matches, or at least when they're done to death. Now, I'm not talking about ECW, but more so TNA and how they do a hardcore match like every single fucking week. No disqualification, no holds barred, no disqualification, whatever. They're all the same thing, street fight. But Shane thrived in that environment, and this match was no exception in really having one of the most memorable spots of all time, falling off the top of that steel structure and taking one of the craziest bumps I've ever seen. So coming in at number 2 here is from the following year, King of the Ring 2001, when he took on Kurt Angle, and again, a street fight. All these matches are street fights or no disqualification, if you haven't noticed already. But Kurt Angle wrestled multiple times that night in the King of the Ring tournament, and he wrestled against his arch rival, Shane McMahon, who cost him the win in the King of the Ring tournament that year. And Kurt Angle was unable to, repeat the feat of becoming a 2-time back-to-back King of the Ring champion after winning it in 2000. He was unable to do it in 2001 due to Shane McMahon's interference in his various matches. So going into this match, Kurt Angle was fucking pissed. And he took out all of his anger on Shane McMahon. Again, known for that one spot, or multiple spots rather, in a row. But the whole match was a lot of fun. Shane McMahon taking a lot of punishment, dishing out some of his own as well, but unable to pick up the victory in the end. But Kurt Angle taking Shane suplexing him, belly to belly suplexing him through a glass. At first it didn't break, so it took a couple times. And he would do it through one, he did it through another, he might have done it through a third. I gotta watch it back again. But that sequence of suplexes is just astonishing to watch. And again, a bump I dare anyone to take who says wrestling is fake. And it's just incredible. The amount of punishment that Shane was able to take. And like I said earlier, the amount of punishment he was able to take and still have the people behind him was really something to behold, especially for someone that did not wrestle on the regular, for someone that was not an active member of the roster, for what he could do in the ring with guys like Kurt Angle, whether it be an Angle or a Blackman or a Kane or whoever. You would really have to, anyone, a real flexible, versatile competitor that could have a great match of many different styles with just about anyone. And Kurt Angle was that guy to dish out that punishment, and the crowd remained solidly rallying behind Shane McMahon, and this match was no exception. But again, just a vicious street fight to a great feud that had been going on for the summer of 2001, and the bout that they had here, the brutal, bloody brawl they had at King of the Ring 2001 really exemplified what Shane McMahon was all about and the resiliency he had as a competitor and his motives as a performer. And we get to my favorite Shane McMahon match of all time. I would say it's not really a surprise, but it might come as a surprise to some people because I know RJ's favorite Shane McMahon matches are the ones with Kane from 2003. But after watching this pay-per-view twice, once in 2014, right after the launch of the network, probably on the night of the launch, not the night of when the WWE Network launched, but I think a week or two later. And then watching it last year as well, the main event gets, praised all the time as one of the greatest main events in WrestleMania history, and I understand that. But I would say that this match really stole the show for me, which is amazing considering all the great matches that happened on that show and arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time. 15 years ago from 2016, from this upcoming WrestleMania 17, Shane McMahon taking on his father, Vince McMahon. And really the last great thing to come out of the McMahon family before the invasion angle that summer, which obviously bombed, and no need to get into that because that's very well documented. But Shane McMahon had, in storyline, bought WCW. It technically was bought out in real life. But in storyline, it was Shane McMahon's whose name was on the contract. It was Shane McMahon's name that was on the contract. So he was the now head of WCW. The members of the roster were sitting up in the nosebleed seats up in the stadium that night in Texas. So they watched Shane McMahon take on his father. And the underlying storyline here was not the invasion storyline or WCW versus WWF. That would come later, which was a lot shittier version of this feud. But what happened in this matchup was that Shane was battling for his mother. His mother had been sedated, she was paralyzed, she had been in a wheelchair for months and months and months. And in the meantime, Vince would make out with Trish Stratus, of all people, right in front of his wife, Linda McMahon. It was a great storyline they had been building up, and Mick Foley also got involved, so he was appointed the special guest referee or enforcer or whatever. And the stipulation for this match was, of course, like every other match on this list, a street fight, no disqualification, no holds barred, whatever you call it. You can only call it one thing, a masterpiece of a match. Again, it wasn't the brawl that Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock had in the main event. It wasn't the 5-star instant mat classic that Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle had earlier on in the show. It wasn't even the spectacle that was the triple threat TLC tag team title match between the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, and Edge and Christian. It was a storytelling spectacular, in my personal opinion. Like I said, the bad blood that had been going on between the McMahon family members for months, even years, if you want to argue that, really culminated on this one show. And it would continue past this one event as well. But it really culminated and reached its peak at WrestleMania 17. And Vince was not a wrestler. Shane, technically, by definition, was not a wrestler, a part-time, untrained wrestler, if anything. And Vince only got in there when it meant business, when he had to take matters into his own hands. And it came down to that at this show. But these guys going back and forth and fully getting interjected in the action. And in the end, Linda McMahon, who Vince took from the ringside area, brought her into the ring to watch him beat the shit out of their own son, Shane. He comes on in the ring, and I don't know if Stephanie got involved here too. I'm pretty sure she did. And she attacked Trish, and I think that's how she got out of the matchup. I don't know if I'll be watching WrestleMania 17 again this road to WrestleMania season just because there's so many other WrestleManias I want to watch. But if anything, I would watch this match back for this one moment and watching the crowd just come fucking unglued in Texas. So again, like I said, Vince brings Linda into the ring, paralyzed, just to watch him beat the shit out of their son Shane. And as he goes to beat the crap out of Shane, Linda stands up and the crowd loses their shit. Low-blowing Vince, they lose it even more. Mick Foley with Mr. Sacco. Shane takes him out with a coast-to-coast to pick up the win, and who goes 2-0 at WrestleMania. He's undefeated at WrestleMania going into his match with Undertaker at WrestleMania 32, believe it or not. But wow, just that one moment. But the whole match is a lot of fun. And anyone who says WrestleMania 17, oh, it's overrated, it wasn't that good, I'll admit it's not my favorite WrestleMania of all time just because I wasn't there for it, and there's other WrestleManias I like more. But this one match really sums up why wrestling is so much fun. You don't need two great wrestlers. You just need a great story and a great moment, great action, and that's exactly what this was. It doesn't need to be hold for hold, and as awesome as that is, more often than not, you can have a great match with the two people that are in the ring, and that goes for Vince and Shane. Two untrained wrestlers, but had one of the greatest and one of my personal favorite WrestleMania matches of all time at WrestleMania 17. So that is my personal favorite Shane McMahon match. I want to know what your guys' list would be. Your top 5, top 3, top 10 favorite Shane McMahon matches. List them down in the comment section below. Find me on Twitter. Tweet me there at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.jason.matthews. And that's it. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I am so happy that Shane McMahon is back in WWE. Here comes the money. I can't even begin to tell you. Maybe RJ can because he was there. He witnessed my markout moment, my markoutitis diagnosis. But I can't even begin to tell you how excited, how enthralled, how happy I was to see Shane O'Mac back in WWE, and how I'm excited I am to see him in the ring come WrestleMania 32, unless it gets replaced by someone else. Only time will tell. But anyway, guys, continue loving wrestling. Always great time talking to you every single Friday here on the Random Video Blog. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and the road to WrestleMania. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.